Welcome, Cosmic Explorers, to Cosmic Classroom Lessons from Starlight Synergy School, the podcast where we journey through the nexus of science and spirituality to empower your life. I'm your guide, Katie Dickieson, cosmic engineer and founder of Starlight Synergy School, and your fellow traveler on this path of discovery and transformation. This podcast is for seekers, dreamers, and anyone ready to uncover the mysteries of the universe within themselves. Whether you're curious about the cosmic forces that shape our existence or seeking practical tools for personal empowerment, you're in the right place. By tuning in, you'll discover how to navigate life's challenges with grace and strength, drawing on the power of both your intellect and intuition. You'll learn strategies for calming the storm within, setting boundaries that honor your soul, and ultimately stepping into the empowered, radiant being that you are meant to be. Get ready to transform your understanding of yourself and the world around you. If you're inspired to explore further and join our community of cosmic learners, follow us on social media, subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, and visit our website to learn more about our courses. Together, we can unlock the secrets of the stars and the untapped potential within. Let's embark on this cosmic journey together. Welcome to the Cosmic Classroom. Please remember, this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. While we explore topics related to personal and spiritual growth, it's important to seek professional advice for individual concerns. Our journey together is one of exploration and discovery, not a substitute for professional guidance. Get ready to elevate your essence, honey, because the stars are not the limit. Welcome to another episode of Cosmic Classroom, Lessons from Starlight Synergy School, where we dive deep into the tools that empower and enlighten our paths. Today, we're exploring the fascinating intersection of human design and emotional freedom techniques, or EFT, with our esteemed guest, Shakti Rios. As a profound guide in both disciplines, Shakti brings a wealth of knowledge on utilizing these tools to navigate life's intricacies and enhance personal growth. Join us as we unravel the layers of human design, understand the healing powers of EFT, and discuss how these practices can be integrated into your daily life for transformative results. Whether you're seeking clarity on your life's design or tools for emotional resilience, this episode is your gateway to deeper self-understanding and empowerment. Let's begin this journey of exploration and discovery together.
There I am. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh my God, you look so cute.
Thank you. I did space buns today.
Oh, perfect. It's funny that you wore that for this because I wore grandma fashion for you.
Yay. I'm also still in grandma fashion though, because can't leave it behind.
No.
Patterned sweater.
It's really ironic because I feel like I didn't even realize I pulled out the bag of clothes, the small bag of clothes I have from my Nana. And I'm like, this shirt? Are you kidding me? I'm like, it's like she knew that this is what I'd become at this point in my life.
That's how I felt about my grandma's closet also. I was taking all these blazers and stuff. These are so good. Who doesn't want these?
I know, they match
Fit me perfectly. It was crazy too.
Yeah.
It was so good.
I'm really excited to talk today, and I know that we're going to have many more conversations in the future. Today, I wanted to focus more on just the beginning stages of human design and EFT with you. The past 3 weeks now, I have been working one-on-one with Shakti doing EFT, and it has been absolutely fucking life-changing. And it's weird. I got this call during meditation one day, and it was before you launch this school, you've got to get all the underneath the surface shit out of the way first. You don't know what's there, but there's something there that could come up and make things more rough. And so we've been on this healing journey, which has been magical. And so I just would like you to introduce yourself in all of your glory.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been a huge honor. So thank you. So I am Shakti. I am a human design business and career consultant, and I also am an EFT practitioner, and I have done these things now for what feels like forever. My background is really interesting. So personal, a little bit of a background. I am a child of immigrant parents. I am Cuban American, and the first person in my family to be an entrepreneur or be in the healing arts or do any of the things that I've done. So a lot of my life has really been breaking out of boxes and doing a lot of things the different way. I was also born with a heart condition that should have killed me. It didn't. So there's just been a lot of this theme of doing things differently, approaching life differently. I've always been that different one in my family or in any circle that I've run, even when I was in college. I was just doing things not the way everybody else did them. And that's really been something that I've enjoyed. The path less traveled has been a familiar path for me. And it's always been full of adventure and just something that really excited me to explore. How I've been led down this path of what I do now has been very serendipitous, and none of it was a logical decision, and none of it made really much sense. I am a splenic projector, as you will soon learn from me. So my spleen has really been the thing that I now realize drove all of those decisions. When I decided to go to massage school, it was a very much a splenic pulse response. Oh, do this now. When I decided to learn EFT, it's funny. I saw like a video. I knew nothing about it. I had never even used it on myself. And I'm like, I'm going to become a practitioner. It was like an immediate go do that thing. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like the whole time I'm making these choices, I'm like, what is happening? But it now makes sense in hindsight. It's just in the moment, I was just living in this like trust fall, like a constant trust fall with the universe guiding me moment to moment. And even with human design found me in my Saturn return, I had just had my first child. I was in a really dark place mentally and emotionally. And this woman that had gotten hired to take my massage clients while I was on maternity leave was like, hey, have you ever heard of this? And I was like, no, she runs my chart. Oh, you're a projector. You need to know about this. And then literally got fired within a handful of weeks from that moment and disappeared. And I've like never seen her again. Just this mystical experiences. This is to me like real mysticism, everyday mysticism, these things that come into your life and they don't necessarily have a pattern or a reason, but they anchor in on you and they hold you and they never really let you go. And that was human design and EFT for me. It's no matter where I went or where I was looking, it was like right there, like, hello, like just following me around. And I think nearly 4 years now, I was asked to surrender everything else I was doing and to teach this beautiful system to the world. And had to grapple with all these feelings of not enoughness that naturally come up when you decide to do something huge. And I had been studying it for years at that point, but I was still a classic one line, I don't know if I can do this. I have enough information, that kind of thing. And then it's been just a beautiful journey of recognition since then, like truly leaning into what was mine to give the world and watching that become an authority in a space that I feel like it was destined to be my realm of authority, but I didn't really realize that. And then it just naturally happened because I was living my design, because I was doing what I was meant to be doing. The recognition came, the authority came, and that with that came a sense of peace and inner stillness of, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And now I can recognize that because I'm seeing that from the other as well, which is very much a projector thing. Right. So this is how I came here. And this is the work that I do now. And I have a huge passion for helping people build these businesses that are very much coherent and congruent with who they are, and businesses that feel like an expression of their soul and feel really satisfying to show up to and not sacrificial and not a burden, which so many of us who start doing XYZ thing in our lives end up feeling that way. I've also been an entrepreneur for 14 years. So my background in entrepreneurship is extensive and across the board in different areas and fields. So I understand that journey very deeply and what it takes from psycho-emotional level to really hold on and be steadfast in that. And so that's now the population that I serve and that I'd love to serve the most with this.
I love that you were talking about that human design and EFT just kept popping up like, hi, hello, because I feel like without you intentionally doing it, that was you in my life. Like the first time I ever saw you from across the room, I was like, I need to know that person. But I was like in such a, I don't know, frozen, terrible, really socially anxiety ridden place in my life at that moment. And then it was like the next day that you just showed up in a sandwich shop that I was at. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was all meant to be.
Yes. Yes. I'm so glad for those persistent moments.
Yeah.
That's how we get where we're going. If you pay attention, right?
It really, and I honestly feel like ever since you came into my life in more of a consistent manner, that and just being my coach, I just feel that I am more capable of following those messages that the universe gives me that are like leading me on a path.
So good. What a compliment. Thank you. That's like the greatest compliment. Thank you.
That's what you do, though. He's like, you help people feel safe in listening to what the universe is already telling them and recognizing, yeah, go with what everything is telling you to go with.
Yes. Thank you. I really receive that because that's like honestly, my greatest aspiration, that you feel safe enough to be who you are in the world and to trust this sacred relationship with the divine that you were born with, that we have forgotten, that we've been severed from. It's like really restoring that connection. I have chills as I'm saying that because that really feels like what I do is helping you restore your connection to that and to trust it.
100%. Something I also want to just touch on really quickly is I feel like when it comes to topics like this, other people in like specifically, we can say like the scientific community could look at these things and just be like, oh, it's all woo woo and it's all bullshit. But you have a very scientific way of approaching the woo world. So it's really fucking cool how you do that because I can understand the way that you explain things from the woo perspective and also the scientific perspective. And it's really fucking powerful.
Thank you. I don't see a divide, and I
I don't
never
either.
have.
Yeah.
I've never have. And I think that's probably why one of my greatest eh, gifts and one of the things I work on a lot is being able to hold what seem to be like competing notions in my mind at the same time and see through the eyes of both of those things. Because I think there's so much to learn when we're willing to do that and willing to hold these two things that could be considered diametrically opposed and see what you see when you combine them, like a kaleidoscope, like a belief kaleidoscope, and see
Ooh.
what happens. Like that's literally what happens in my brain. I put them together and I get to see this like thing that happens between them. And I love finding the anchor points in what I know to be spiritual law in the world of physics and in the world of new science, because science is changing rapidly. And so much of what was considered to be just like a wild hair of a thought is now, wait a minute, like time space continuum. What is going on? There's so much that's coming to the fore that's proving that these really old teachings from the other side of the world that seem to be like primitive and barbaric were anything but that. And that they actually had access to a lot of information that we have seemingly lost. And we're just now coming around to with this way that we do science in the world. And that to me is fascinating to see us come around to this knowledge at a different angle. And this is why I talk about bridging this gap between spirituality and science, because it's just two different languages for the same occurrence. And we just have to like get to know that.
Yeah. I feel like that happens all the time. Even just, this is not the conversation we're getting into today, but just like with religion in general and the different types of religion and how we're all saying the same fucking thing, man. We just don't know how to communicate. So my first question for you actually is for the listeners who might be new to this, could you explain what human design is and how it can serve as a guide in our lives?
Yes. So very simply, human design is the science of how we are different. That's the simplest definition of human design.
Perfect.
It is exceptionally good at helping us understand what it means to be an individual, how we are each individual, and how our energy system is designed to operate as an individual within the program or the matrix of reality. So in human design, they refer to the matrix as the program.
Mm.
So the program has a sort of like it has a data set, and we are operating within that data set. And we each have a configuration that is unique to that data set. And so when we understand that configuration and we know how to use it and work with it, we experience a reduction in friction and noise. And when we don't understand our own frequency or resonance, then we experience an increase in noise or friction in this experience of reality. That is the simplest definition.
Oh my God, that's perfect. I love that. I've never heard a definition like that for human design before. I fucking love that. How has integrating human design into your life transformed your approach to personal challenges and growth?
Oh my gosh. It changed my whole life. From the moment I understood just something as simple as my aura type, which I know you understand because you are also like less common aura type, you would say. So we don't really see the world around us is not really modeled for us. It's modeled for the majority aura type, which is the generator. So when I learned that I was a projector, it was like I could take a deep breath for the first time in my whole life
Oh, yeah.
and suddenly didn't feel like a fuck up anymore. And I was like, oh my God, this is why I've always felt so weird. And this is why I've always felt like an alien on this planet. And this is why people constantly come to me for advice. Like I was like 5 and adults are asking me about my opinion on something. And I'm like, what is happening? But that's been my whole life. Strangers will sit next to me and tell me their whole life story and then ask me for a solution to this. And I'm like 11. And so this suddenly I had all these like flashes about things that have happened in my life that suddenly made sense. And it was like someone had handed me this like etheric permission slip to
Mm.
just continue to be who I was instead of trying to be different or beat myself up over the way that I was. So that was just foundationally transformative, just on that level, because I suddenly went from feeling like I needed to feel badly for being who I was and how I was to just really owning that. And that shift altogether made me completely unapologetic in the way that I showed up in the world. And that really began the journey of owning my own power and my own success and on becoming an authority in all these things that I wanted to become an authority in because I just stopped feeling bad about being me. It was like
Mhm.
cornerstone to changing that.
I can totally speak to that as well because I'm a manifester. And when I found out about human design the same way from a friend who is just, have you heard what this is? And so I looked it up and I remember when I found out I was a manifestor and when I looked at everything, I was just like, oh my God, all of these little idiosyncrasies that like I've been telling people about myself my whole life. And they're like, that's not a thing. That's not just who you are. I'm like, no, it's real. Like, this actually shows how weird I am. Or like, and when I found out like the percentage of the people in the world who are manifestors, I'm like, I fucking knew it. Like, this makes so much sense. But it's
100%.
crazy because now that I've been diagnosed as autistic, I can relate it to that. Is that finding out that I was a manifestor felt the same as when I found out I was autistic. I was like, oh, cool. I have a new roadmap to like figure out the world.
I literally made a TikTok saying how similar that was, how similar it was
Mm.
figuring out your human design as to the fact that you were neurodivergent in some way. Like it had the same level of impact on my understanding of my role in the world. That's how big it was. Yeah.
Makes so much sense. And I know we've talked about this so many different times. It really is like that big of a key to the world. We're going to shift over to EFT now. Could you enlighten our listeners about what EFT is and its benefits?
Yes. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It is a modality that operates on the meridian system in the body. So it's an acupressure modality that uses the meridian system and the organization of the energy lines in the body to move emotion, distress through the emotional system. What ends up happening a lot of times is we'll have a challenging experience that negatively charges us for something like fear or terror or something like this. And that emotion never reaches its full cycle. There's actually a cycle to every emotion, the way that it's designed to be experienced and moved through the body in order to come to a place of completion or integration
Mm.
and in order to not get stuck in the body. But as humans, we don't do that. You'll notice, for example, in the wild with an animal, when they have a really terrifying experience, the animal will go lay down on the ground and shake for about 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Their whole body will just rattle like uncontrollably. And then after they're done rattling, they literally just get up and move on with their life because they've processed that emotion through their physical system. We don't do that. We don't do that. We don't really take the time to move an emotion through the body to feel it to its full potential and integrate it so that we can move on without trauma, right?
Mhm.
So when the emotions get interrupted, this is what creates this trauma pattern or PTSD or things of this nature. We don't fully process something. So with EFT, what we're doing is bringing to completion an experience of an emotion or a negative repetitive pattern or something of that nature in order to stop that pattern. We're literally stopping that limbic part of the brain, which is when you are in PTSD or in anxiety, what's happening is that the back part of your brain, the primal brain, it's like a panic button and it's just pressed on. Like it's just on for everything. It's hypervigilance. can't slow down, can't calm down, can't your sex drive disappears, you can't sleep, all these things, because when you're hypervigilant, you're not really thinking about things like reproduction or sleep. You're like survival, get up a
Right.
tree, run from the tiger, right? So with EFT, we're interrupting that so that the energy pattern is not going to the panic button. It's coming to the front of the brain, the prefrontal cortex that can allow you to make decisions and make a different choice. So when that happens, you naturally relax the system. You now are making better choices and you're seeing the options that you weren't seeing before, and everything kind of stabilizes and comes back online. That's literally what EFT does. And it's a very simple practice in terms of what's required of you to do it, but it's very nuanced in terms of how you use it to liberate someone from, subconscious programming or challenges that we might think we know, but we're really blind to the nuances in our own psychology and in our own experience. And this is where the benefit of having someone who's trained in that, listening to you and finding the connection points and then bringing that up for you to work through is so beneficial and helpful.
Yeah, I remember I think it was our second session, there was a moment that I didn't want to go into, and you could tell how hesitant I was. And like, sure, I could have done EFT on myself, or I could have done some other type of healing modality on myself, but I would have never pressed myself past that. Also, I don't know that it would have been safe for me to press myself past that without having someone there to guide me or to make me feel safe enough to go into that moment. So that was really huge.
That's a massive thing. And I think EFT has been around a long time and people can go on YouTube and watch videos, and there's no harm in doing whatever you watch in a video. I just always make the distinction of if you're using the modality and you're not seeing change, it's because you're not using it correctly and you're not accessing what we call like core points in collapsing core issues that need your attention. So at that point, you might want to find someone who can help you because
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened because last year when I had run into you, I told you how my partner was doing EFT and it was working
Mhm,
great with him. And I
mhm.
tried on myself and I was like, nothing. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Doesn't feel bad. It's gonna help
Well,
relax you. It's a very relaxing thing to do on yourself. Absolutely. You could tap on nothing and it'll relax you. It's just
massaging
it's
yourself.
like, yeah, it's like I was gonna say it's like a tool, like a hammer, right? A hammer can do a lot of different things. Like you can break a window with it, or you can break a twig with it, or you can discover, wow, if I use this hammer for this nail, it's like really effective. Like it does a really good job at that
Mm.
one thing, right? Or the back of the hammer, you can pull a nail out. Like it's designed for so much, right? So there's you could use it for whatever you want, but what is it really designed for and how is it really designed to be used?
Such a
It's
good way to put it. Yeah.
such a better use of a hammer.
So much better use.
So much better. What it's made for.
So much better use. Okay. So when it comes to, or, okay. Do you see that EFT and human design complement each other in the journey of self discovery and healing? Like, how do you use them together?
So within human design, there is a language of self and not self. So one of the very basic things we begin to learn with human design is that there's a version of ourself that's self, like who we truly are, and a version of ourself that's not self. We develop not self psyche or behaviors based on conditioning from our upbringing, from the things that happen in our life. We just start acting in ways that are not coherent with who we are for real in actuality. And so the process of moving from not self to self is called deconditioning, leaving behind the conditioning, integrating the conditioning, and becoming the self. The tool that I use for that deconditioning process is EFT and some other forms of quantum healing coming here shortly as well into that. But it's more about a tool that I use for deconditioning. So human design is what helps me get a scope on a job. Like human
Okay.
design really helps me get a scope on someone like, okay, here are the potentials for where the work is likely going to be coming from. And then I verify that by talking to someone and hearing what's going on. And I can usually see the bridge point between what they're saying and their design elements. And at that point, the EFT steps in to serve as the medium by which we remove the deconditioning patterns with more efficiency.
Okay. Can you give us like an example of doing that specifically? And if
Sure.
you want, you can use me in one of our sessions or someone else, doesn't matter.
Big one, I'll say one of the biggest things I see is someone who comes in who in their chart, they have an undefined ego, for example. The ego center is undefined. It's not defined. The thematics around the ego center have a lot to do with things like worth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Am I worthy? Am I valuable? Because it is a center for material resources as well. It is the center that allows us to generate resources and manage resources and sustain ourselves in this material plane. So when I see someone that doesn't have a defined ego, one thing I can almost automatically assume about them is that they were at some point in abusive relationships with someone who was likely a narcissist and who took advantage of the fact that all that person wanted to feel was worthy.
Wow.
Okay. So the thing with the undefined ego is that because that's all they want, they also live this life of constantly wanting to prove themselves. They want to prove that they're good enough. They want to prove that they're lovable enough. They want to prove all these things. And so then when I start asking these questions, is this a pattern that was in? It's always a yes. I've never done a reading for an undefined ego where that wasn't a yes, by the way.
Mm.
That's literally never happened. And then I ask them, I'm like, do you still feel like you have to prove yourself? Yes. Why? Okay, there's a tapping topic right there. We need to work on why you feel that way. I feel like I need to prove myself because I just grew up feeling like I was dumb. You
Mm.
did. Okay, tell me more about that. When I was 5, this happened. There's a core memory that we can go into and work on with tapping. Okay. So
Wow.
this is how it's like a reverse engineering of where did that originate from, that conditioning, and then depending on if they give me memories that we can work on or just general emotions that we can work on, we go at it from there.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Do I have a defined ego?
I believe you do because we both do, and that was like one of our connecting points is like the defined ego component.
Okay. I couldn't remember. Are you looking it up now?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I always like to have people I should have just pulled up your chart because I always have people's charts up when I talk. Literally, like, I'll be coaching even if we're not doing like a human design session, I just have their chart up. I'm like, just in case I have to reference this.
Oh, that's so cool. That's a
Yeah.
huge deal because that is like putting multi layers onto a healing modality where, and I'm
100%.
not like talking smack about other people that do EFT, but this is like heavy healing. I feel like in a level up in what is possible in your healing journey by implementing all of these things together, like a holistic approach.
100%. Because a lot of times people will come in and they'll have these patterns or stories, but they won't necessarily understand why. And I think honestly, the most damaging thing for people is not knowing why something happened or
Mhm.
why they do this thing constantly or why not feeling validated is actually the most harmful thing that people experience. It's not even the negative experiences that they had. It's like the lack of validation and the lack of understanding is almost more painful than the experiences themselves. So this
Yeah.
is why I feel like human design I will tell you, I do a lot of both. During my human design readings, it is rare that someone doesn't start crying. Rare.
Mm.
Rare. And I'm not doing any healing work. I'm not like actively tapping with them I'm just doing a consultation with them. But that's because this becomes so deeply validating to see yourself through this lens. It's very objective and not subjective, and to understand that these patterns and things that happen, they were by design. And it's almost like it just gets this pressure off of them. Like they don't feel like they fucked up or they don't feel like really prominent memory is a client of mine who left a high control religion and it was like a big wound in her side for a long time. And when I showed her in her chart that she was designed to do that, literally it was in her chart that she would abandon values from a previous established system and look for something new. Her jaw dropped,
Oh,
literally dropped. And she just starts bawling because she was like, now I understand why that felt like one of the most important things I've ever done.
I have
That.
chills right now thinking about that.
Yeah. Yes.
So for someone who's like eager to begin their journey with human design and EFT, what are some practical first steps that they can take?
I have a free chart generator on my site. And the reason I say my site is because I also gift a free video on aura type. So if you run your chart
Oh,
on my site, what will happen is you'll get this picture of your body graph and then kind of like a written breakdown of the chart. your aura type will be hyperlinked. If you click on that link, there's a video that I made for each aura type that really helps you dig into what does it mean to live my life as this aura type, like an introductory sort of video, which I think is a really nice bonus. So starting there and getting to know the mechanics of your aura type, which is like very introductory, but is where everybody starts, and I think is a good way to open that door. With EFT, there's the world is covered with resources. Like you can just go on YouTube and find EFT videos on pretty much anything. Now, if you have something that's, I want specific attention on something because I have this concern and I know that I probably need professional help and I don't just want to like willy-nilly dabble in stuff, I offer a clarity call. And I actually just had one before coming here. And the whole point of that call is for me to meet you and to hear you and to hear like where you are and what you are needing and to help you decide what's actually going to be a better fit for you. I know sometimes coming into these worlds, there's so many options and there's so much that you want to explore and it can get pretty confusing, like out of the gate to be like, should I do this or should I do that or should I do the other thing? But if you have some direction, it changes the game because then you have someone who actually knows the material, like helping you and being like, probably not this right now. Let's do this.
Yeah. And also the fact that, because I know before I met you, that there were so many different human design apps that I had and like things I went through. And you can get like what your design is, but that's about all you're going to get. And then you can pay monthly. But I didn't even know you had a free video on aura type. And now I'm like immediately after this, I'm going to go watch mine. That's like a huge thing. And to have a discovery call about tea, that's a really big deal because when it comes down to this stuff, I really think it's important for people to talk to somebody one-on-one because just like you had said before, there are things we don't know that we don't know. And you have been trained to recognize when a person is ignoring that those things are existing or even just trying to pretend like they don't. Like, that's a really big deal.
And I changed my model to be that where it's like just, you have to book a clarity call first for that reason, because I want people to come in without decision fatigue. I don't want you to have decision fatigue over what you're choosing. I want you to just be able to come in and be who you are in that moment and show me that so that I can read the field and say, okay, this is what I'm picking up and this is what's probably going to be best suited for you, even if it's not even working with me. I'm that person. I am the person that is going to tell you, I don't actually think that our work together is for you yet or at all. I think you'd be much better suited by XYZ. And I have a whole list of resources and people and things that I think I could direct someone to if I genuinely felt that would be a better fit for them. Because the whole point of me doing this and the whole reason I was guided to do this was to serve the people that I came here to serve. I understand as a projector, I have my people and I'm not everybody's people. I am my people's people. So that's like a big thing for me is making sure that I'm working with those people.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out the decision fatigue because I think decision fatigue is the most exhausting thing in the entire world. And then it'll be like to the point where it's like, I'm not doing anything at all. So to be able to be like confident and just, okay, because right now, the way you're showing up right now, this is how you are all the time. This is the Shakti somebody's going to talk to when they book a call with you. You never have to, you're going to talk to somebody who's going to be intimidating or, although we did talk about the other day how we're like, I guess we might intimidate people because we just are like this all the time.
Super weird. I don't know. Is it our weirdness? Is it our grandma clothes? I don't know.
I feel like the grandma clothes should make people feel really comfortable around us. Okay. What common obstacles, I feel like maybe we've already touched on this, but what common obstacles do beginners face when exploring human design and EFT, and how can they navigate these challenges?
The most common obstacle is everything that's wrong on the internet.
Yeah.
That's the most common obstacle. It's like you go on the internet and you're just like, what? What? It's like everywhere you look, someone's written something weird about. And there's a lot of misinformation on the internet, which is really surprising to me that there's tons of books written about this. I'm like, at this point, there shouldn't be like a miswritten notion about human design on the internet. Like there's like the basic things should, for example, there aren't 5 types. That's not like a thing. There are 4 aura types and 1 subtype of an aura. That's a very basic.
Wait, what
first thing you learn when you're studying. Okay, so there are 4 aura types. the generator aura, the
Uh-huh.
manifestor aura, the projector aura, the reflector aura. There are
Oh.
only 4. The manifesting generator is a subtype of the generator. It's not its own type. It has the same yin aura that a generator has, the same yin aura. That in terms of the way the aura mechanic is and how the strategy of the aura is the same. It's the same strategy. Wait to respond. They have the same strategy. It is the same aura with a different kind of air. And I say sometimes it has like a manifestory air only because it shares in the emotional theme that people who are mangens, they share this frustration and anger emotional theme, which the anger is a manifestor emotional theme and the
Yep.
frustration is a generator emotional theme. So in that sense, they share something similar. And the other thing they share is that manifesting generators have this capacity to pivot and redirect rather quickly, which is a manifestor trait
Yep.
as well, versus a generator who, once they're locked into something, it's you got to keep doing whatever you're doing until you see it through, right? So there's a difference in the way the generator energy orients itself, but mangens aren't their own type. And you'll read that everywhere on the internet. And I'm like,
Everywhere.
who is writing these things?
Even the people, I've had so many conversations with people, and someone's going to think I'm an asshole for saying this, but I don't care. Anytime I meet a manifesting generator and they're like super into human design, I feel like they're always like, what is your type? I'm like, I'm a manifester. And they're like, oh, me too. I'm a manifesting generator. And I'm like, you are not a manifester.
Oh, no.
You are a
That's
wannabe
not it.
manifester. Like, you shouldn't
No.
be saying you're a manifester. You're not.
No.
Okay.
No.
Let's see.
You're a generator.
Yep. Okay. So when I ask you these questions, I know that some of these maybe we haven't even talked about yet, but really, okay, what it comes down to, and when I've spoken to other celestial guides of Starlight Synergy School, is that when I ask these questions, I want you to think about it in your own way. If Starlight Synergy School was just your school, how would you do this? Because I think the expertise and the genius of all the people, all the practitioners that are coming into this is so important. And the creativity and what they see is going to be stuff that I don't see and I don't think of, especially since that's their expertise. So I really just want you to like imagine Starlight Synergy School is your baby and what you would think you would do, basically.
Okay.
So and also I know that you've already recorded the intro to human design video for this, so talking about that as well. But how are human design and EFT incorporated into the curriculum at Starlight Synergy School?
I think my greatest aspiration for bringing this into the school would be to give individuals the capacity to see themselves very clearly through human design, so that I'm guiding them through understanding what they're looking at when they're looking at their chart and they're trying to put these pieces of information together for themselves, that they get to have a very accurate seeing of themselves, of who they are and how they can interpret that information for themselves and find clarity in that. And in terms of learning EFT, I think more than the modality or technique, it's more important for me to help individuals understand emotion, the nature of emotion and our relationship to emotion, and not just how important that is and how sacred emotion is. Emotion is literally the center point on which everything else pivots. And it has the capacity to elevate our experience as well as crash it. It is literally pulling the levers on everything that we decide all day, every day, and we don't even know it. It is the number one indicator of buyer behavior. It is literally the thing that indicates whether you marry someone or not. Literally, emotion governs everything. It is such an important role in our lives and so little understood, and so little understood in terms of its impact on our physical health and our physical well-being. And so my goal is that students coming in have the ability to really be in the contemplation of that, of the significance of their emotional state, and to learn practices that can help them become stable and can help them become unafraid of their own emotions, to really strip away the fear or the resistance to feeling anything and to allow themselves to understand that there is a sort of hero's journey of going through the emotion and coming out the other side. And when they do that, they will naturally emerge a more integrated and full person, right? That I think is the most, for me as a guide, is the most important thing that someone would walk away with
That's really
in the
fucking
program.
big. That's fucking huge.
Yeah.
What was I going to say next? Based on your expertise, what unique benefits, I feel like you just touched on this a lot in there, but specifically, what unique benefits do these practices bring to the students of the school?
I will put it to you this way. If you understand who you are and how you are, every decision that you're going to make in your life is immediately going to be abetted by that knowing. And this confusion that happens when you're living in a matrix full of noise, bidding for your attention and bidding for your buy-in will be suddenly much quieter because you will understand how you were designed to operate in this matrix of reality. Paired with that, your understanding of emotions and how the emotions are really operating on the background of your software, your personal human software, and how they really influence your decisions and they influence the things that you are drawn to or not. If you can understand what I just said of human design and emotional mastery, there is literally no place you cannot go, no thing you cannot do, and no limit that can be placed on you artificially at all.
I fucking love you.
That's what it will do for you. Do you want more?
No, that was fucking amazing. I literally even had a moment earlier today where I almost I don't want to say con because I don't think this person has like a course that's a bad thing, but I almost got conned into buying another course for something today. And not that, but the craziest part is that as I went to go read into it, my body was just like, you don't fucking need this. And it was because of our session the other day that I was just like, I am enough the way I am, and I am capable of doing this. And even if I got something from someone else, I'm going to do it differently than they tell me to anyway. So I have to stop looking
100%.
at people telling me what to fucking do.
100%. Even with my own course, like I have a course, like a business, human design business course. And whenever I get on a call about that, I'm always like, what is your authority telling you? Literally, I will not just let people sign up. I'm like, is this correct for you? Is it? Because if it is, you're going to have a great time. You're going to be obsessed when you're in here and it's going to be magical. I don't want you in there if it's not correct. And that goes back to what I said earlier. I'm always guiding people to what's actually correct for them. And once I know their design, I help them with that. Like in that clarity call, I'm like using their authority with them to see what's correct because that makes such a difference. I'm invested in your correctness. That's what I'm invested in. Because if it's correct for you, I know it's going to be correct for me and it's going to be great. We're going to have a great time. If it's not correct, it's not correct.
And that's why I fucking love you so much, because that's the whole point. And like with all the celestial guides that we have brought together for this school, and I said in the very like first introductory call where we got together, I'm like, if it's not fuck yes energy, and if it's like, I want fuck yes or fuck no energy, if you got anything in between, I don't care. It's fine. You're not going to offend me. I want you here when you're ready to be here. And I'm not going to be mad at you if you're not. It's fine. Do whatever makes you happy. Because if that's where, if the energy comes from that, from all the celestial guides, from all of us being like, this is fucking amazing, we want to create this, then it's going to be fucking amazing. And that's the point. Looking forward, this is going to be the last question. Then I want you to share like everything about you and where people can find you. But looking forward, how do you envision the evolution of human design and EFT in the broader context of personal and spiritual growth for Starlight Synergy School and also the world?
I think human design is starting to get its time in the sun. And I think it's going to be a really fascinating experience to watch people really come home to themselves with this wisdom. And I see it becoming a leading edge tool in schools, in even workplaces, HR, team, hiring. That's a lot of my training is actually in team and corporate and compatibility and cooperation. And I see this as being like the tool for that because it's so clear how people are going to work together and how, or they're not, how well they're going to work or they're not going to work. And what this is so cool is that this really does bypass like any sort of bias you could have about a person. Because if you just see their chart and you know nothing else about them, it's going to exactly tell you who's equipped for what and what's their energy in. And all of a sudden, you could literally do a blind hire of a team of people and they're going to work out well.
Oh,
Right.
that's
And that's,
so
I think,
cool.
so epic. Yeah, it's such an epic thing that you could do with something like that, right? Or imagine building schools or putting classrooms together and having this information and knowing that if you put this group of kids together, they're going to learn best because they're built, their collective energy there's just so many ways you can use this wisdom that's just groundbreaking and evolutionary. As the school grows and as the demand for this kind of knowledge becomes more and more, which I see that being the case, there will be these different branches of education that can be offered to help people take that into whatever sphere they're in and do something with it.
Yeah, like move out of the way, resumes. We're just doing charts now. And
Myers-Briggs.
I was just gonna say, fuck a Myers-Briggs.
Like nothing really. I get why it's so useful, but like personality tests are so fickle. It's one day you feel like X, one day that happened to me. I go between being an ENFJ and an INFJ depending on who I want to tell to fuck off, like any given day. It just like that's what happens with personality tests. But with something like your chart, you're just the same you. That's not going to change.
It's really crazy. This makes me want to go back to my leadership professor at Cornell because we did all of the tests that you could possibly do. And then, like, at the end of the school or at the end of the course, he offered a one-on-one session over Zoom together. And I did that with him for 2 hours. And he read me like he was Jesus himself. Like, he seriously was just like, do you he's like, do you think that everyone hates you? And I was like, yes, all the time. I think everyone hates me. Yeah. And he was like, that's why I'm like, I want to know what he thinks about human design. And I want him to take it himself and see what it's like. Because he gave me one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever heard. And when we went through that conversation, he was like, you are a scientist. Your personality tests say that you do not belong here at all because I'm an ENFP and scientists are INTJs, or ISTJs. Yeah. And so it doesn't make any sense that you're here. Whereas someone who's good at leadership will see that and they will actually pick you to be on their team because you'll be different than the people on their team and help expand what's happening. But a lot of people, a lot of people in the world we live in, they don't recognize these as being important things. But then he said to me, he was like, you are a scientist after all. So when you look at the data that you have collected and all the people, because we had people send in about us as well. And after you've read everything people have written about you, what does that data tell you about if people like you or not? And I was like, damn, that was really nice of him. But anyways, I want you to be able to share with everyone where to find you, what programs you have going on, and all the things you have to offer.
So I am easily found at Phoenix, PHNX. So it's like the word Phoenix, but just the consonants. So it's a sigil version of that word. PhoenixLegacy.com. And that's my site. And my Instagram handle is Phoenix_Shakti, like my name. And I'm always available for a clarity call. You can just book that and I can help direct you in what I think would be a best fit. Right now, I am bringing students in for Design to Shine, which is really geared towards career and professional development using human design. And there'll be a live cohort for about 12 weeks of that, and then it closes up. But all of the time, there's a capacity to book a foundational consult and a profession and calling consult as well. This really depends on where you are and what I feel like might be more appropriate for you. If it's maybe just the EFT work, which I do offer separately without the human design component as well. But a clarity call will just help me understand more of where you currently are and what are you feeling is the most pressing thing that needs to be resolved in your reality so that I can guide you in that way. So that would be my greatest advice is to just book that free clarity call and let's see what comes forward.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Anything else you want to share before we end for the day?
I just really want to remind people that you did not come here to do things the way everybody else did. that you were born an individual and you were meant to be an individual, and every individual hope and dream that you have harbored in your heart was intentionally placed there. And so simply because other people have done it differently or because you're struggling to see the way through it now doesn't mean that it's impossible, and it does not mean that you can't make it happen. So,
Fucking love you. Thank
eh,
you so much for coming on today. And thank you so much for being part of the
it's
school.
thank you.